Graphs to the human side of genius. Einstein.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel and day 21 of the Undegreed journey. First thing this morning as ritual was I dove into my DSA lecture and we started a brand new topic, graphs. We covered the fundamentals, what graphs are, what vertices and edges represent, and the idea of a source and a target vertex. We discussed weighted edges and how time or cost can be modeled as weights, then compared adjacency lists and adjacency matrices. When each makes sense, how much space they take, and why one can be faster than the other in certain scenarios. We also talked about bidirectional graphs versus directed graphs and how direction changes traversal logic. I then explained how to iterate through graphs using DFS and BFS, why their time complexity is typically O, V plus E, and how that plays out in real problems. To wrap up the lecture, we solved the classic LeetCode problem, all path from source to target, where the approach is to start from the source node, explore every possible path using DFS, keep adding nodes to the current path as we go deeper, and whenever we reach the target node, store that path as a valid answer. If we hit a dead end, we backtrack by removing the last node and try a different path, repeating this process until all possible paths from source to target are explored. After the lecture, it was time to grind in the LeetCode terminal, and today I worked through 3 problems end-to-end, focusing not just on getting accepted solutions, but on clearly understanding the logic and thought process behind each one. First was all paths from source to target. Since the graph is a DEG, there's no need to worry about cycles. Starting from the source node, we use DFS to explore every possible path, adding nodes to the current path as we move forward. Whenever we reach the target, that path is saved as a valid result. If we hit a dead end, we backtrack by removing the last node and continue exploring other branches until every possible path is covered. The second problem was build an array with stack operations. The core idea is to simulate the process step by step. We begin with an empty stack and a pointer starting at 1. Push numbers until we reach the required target value. Pop any unnecessary numbers, and keep only the ones that match the target sequence. This direct simulation ensures the final stack exactly matches the target array. The last problem was +1. Here, we add 1 starting from the last digit. Carefully handle carry propagation when a digit becomes 9, and if all digits turn into zeros, we prepend a 1 at the front. Correctly managing this carry logic is what makes the solution clean and reliable. All 3 problems were fully implemented, tested against edge cases, and submitted successfully, and 2 of the problems got submitted while beating 100% of other codes, making it the best time complexity efficient code, making the session both productive and conceptually strong. Next up was my daily language practice. I extended my streak today 348, and my Spanish score is now 32. Today's focus was past tense and practical vocabulary. I learned and practiced words like patinita for skateboard, danino meaning as a child, galletas for cookies, volleyball for volleyball, tranquilo meaning calm, leas meaning to read, and alumno for student. I formed sentences in the past tense to build a stronger foundation, keeping the practice slow, consistent, and intentional. Then it was gym time, and today was pull day. For my back, I did 2 sets each of lat pull-downs and lat pullovers to target different sections of the lats, followed by short grip and wide grip machine rows to work the upper and mid back along with the traps. For biceps, I did 2 sets of dumbbell curls focusing on the long head, preacher hammer curls to hit the brachioradialis, and preacher curl for the short head. Then for the cardio part 1, walked the treadmill for 15 minutes at a 20% incline and burned over 120 calories. Overall, it was a solid session and felt strong and controlled throughout. After that, I moved on to my daily practice project, where the focus was on applying everything in a more real-world data-driven setting. I searched through multiple datasets and settled on one centered around work, life balance, and longevity. The dataset included variables like gender, occupation type, average work hours, rest hours, exercise hours, and age at death, making it a really interesting way to explore how lifestyle factors might relate to long-term outcomes. I began by cleaning the data thoroughly, removing impossible and extreme values such as negative sleep hours and unrealistic entries that could distort the model. I then converted categorical occupation types into dummy variables, split the dataset into training and testing sets, and scaled all features onto a common scale, so no single feature dominated the learning process just because of its magnitude. For evaluation, I defined the error function using mean squared error and relied on NumPy and Sklern utilities like standard scalar and efficient dot products to keep the computations clean and efficient. From there, I implemented multiple models to compare their behavior. Alongside a baseline linear regression with no penalty, I added regularization techniques including ridge, lasso, and elastic net to see how each one handled bias, variance, and feature selection. I explicitly defined the gradient function and used it to iteratively update the weights, tracking how the model improved step by step and visualizing the learning process as it converged. To evaluate performance, I compared actual versus predicted age at death using scatter plots and tracked training and testing errors across models. Lasso and ElasticNet performed similarly, but ElasticNet achieved the best testing error. Using only sleep, work, rest, and exercise hours, the model reached an expected error of about plus or minus 10.7 years, which is strong for a simple multilinear setup. Feature importance highlighted sleep as the most influential factor, followed by exercise, with work hours having a smaller impact. After all the coding and plotting, I finally slowed things down with my reading session. I'm currently reading Einstein, His Life and Universe by Walter Isaacson, and today's section was unexpectedly striking. Instead of diving into equations or groundbreaking theories, it focused on Einstein's personal life, his strained and unhappy marriage with Maliva Merrick, the growing jealousy, emotional distance, and the rigid, almost cold conditions he imposed on their relationship. It also touched on his difficult years in Berlin, where professional pressure mixed with personal turmoil, and then shifted to his later relationship with his cousin Elsa, which felt complicated and uncomfortable, yet deeply revealing. What stood out most was how human all of it felt, messy, flawed, and far from the image of a purely rational genius. This part of the book was awkward to read at times, but also grounding, serving as a reminder that even the greatest minds can struggle with relationships, emotions, and choices, carrying contradictions alongside their brilliance.
The network awakens. Intelligence takes form. Undegreed. The signature remains.